edition of Listen Up a Minute. I am your host, John Dowl, and I have my super producer slash co-host, but he doesn't know he's a co-host yet, Mr. Bill McGee. Bill, thanks as always for making this possible, because without you, I'd be here talking to myself. How are you?
Doing great, man. Doing great. And I hope you're doing well too. We want to thank our brother and our executive producer, Larry Brown, for allowing us to do this. And John, I want to thank you for allowing us to get this program done today.
Well, I'm looking forward to this because when you talked to me last night about these guys, I'm like, I can't wait to do this. This is going to be nice. And when you said it's kind of like Cornel West and Michael Eric Dyson and Tavis Smiley and Wilma Leon and all those guys, they do different things, but the same, and you get them all in the same room. So this is kind of like those summits, those conferences that you see, but this is the conversation that goes on backstage, right? The conversation that nobody hears, but everybody should be a part of.
Right.
So guys, I want to thank you again up front. Before we even get into the interview for joining us, because Bill's saying you all's praises, and I can't wait to get started.
And like I just said, I'm gonna say it for the benefit of the audience. I'll be 70 years old on my next birthday, and I started playing professionally in 1969. That's over 50 years. So I'm kind of almost older than all these guys. I don't know, a couple of them might be older than that, but I'm messing with you. But out of having been in the music industry for over 50 years, I've met and mentored a lot of people and had a chance to work with a lot of people. But in the last 4 or 5, 6, 7 years, I've run across these young brothers right here. And I'll tell y'all a quick story, man. When I was teaching school, because it ties into this, when I was teaching school here in the Richmond area, man, it was during that shoot 'em up time back in the day. And a lot of people had just lost faith in our young people and thinking where they were going. And then I ended up leaving and going to Elizabeth City. And then I ended up at Morehouse. And that year at Morehouse, man, kind of like rejuvenated me. And what it did, I met so many brothers who had it together, who knew what they wanted to be and what they wanted to do. They had a plan. They were 19 years old. And the brother told me, Mr. McGee, I have to keep at least a 3.5 GPA because I'm going to law school, or I'm going to be a doctor. And, man, I came back to Richmond with a renewed spirit of hope that everything was going to be all right. Well, having met the four of you all has done the same thing for me musically. That I know that with the four of you all carrying on the history like griot, that you're going to tell the story of how this music has developed. I know that we're going to be all right. And I'm telling y'all, that's from the heart. And I haven't had a chance to tell the four of you all that individually, but just knowing you and knowing the stuff that you bring to the party, I know we're going to be all right. And I can't say that about everybody. So I give you all your roses at this time and let you smell some roses at this time, because I know based on what I've seen and what I've talked to you all about, that you're going to be all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop running my mouth, and John, I'm going to allow each one of the brothers to say a little something about who they are and what they do. And they're long-winded like me, so I don't know if I can give them a, like when you go to the funeral and everybody want to give remarks and they put up there, it's a 2-minute limit. Well, this ain't no funeral, but we got to limit the time, because any one of the four of you all could take up the whole hour or whole half an hour. So I'm going to give each one of you all a couple of minutes, and I'm going to start. Since Jaquan's upper left hand, I'm going to start with Jaquan. Jaquan, tell us a little something about yourself.
Born in Richmond, here in Richmond. Always been a music lover. Grew up on a lot of music played in the house, progressive jazz, a lot of Bob James and Donald Byrd and Grover Washington Jr., stuff like that. Then in the late 70s, I heard rap music, totally changed everything for me. Went out and bought every rap record, stayed at Bohannon's and Album Den and places like that, taking a little paper route money to buy records. And then every rap magazine that came out, I just, the few that were out at the time, music magazines, Wright On or whatever, that would cover rap, I buy everything about rap that I could to try to learn as much as I could. And then fast forwarding, as soon as the internet became popular, I knew that I wanted to, the music and the history had progressed to the point where I knew they wouldn't get it right. I knew they would start with Run DMC or something that, was more,
right.
Made more monetary, traction than the first stuff. So I knew I wanted to talk about music online. So right around 97, 98, I started building websites and talking about the groups that came before Run DMC. And then from there, everything kind of opened up. Interviewed different people. Write for Rock the Bells right now, which is LL's website. I have my own domain I write for. I write for Richmond Magazine with Craig at times. But I've become a journalist, not necessarily because I never really set out to be one, but I knew they wouldn't get the history right. And I knew that I knew it. So started writing and doing some voiceover stuff. And some of everything that involved music, was one of the first early cats in Richmond, made a rap record with Lil Walter back in mid 80s, 86, 87. So anything that with urban music, man, I'm got my hand in it a little bit.
That's what I'm talking about. Moose.
Yes, sir.
Hit us, brother. Talk to us a little bit about some of the stuff you've done. And we go back, man, for a few years. Boy, I've been to your crib and checked out. Moose he almost got as many records you got, Jaquan, or more. I don't know.
Wow.
I mean, he got a whole room with nothing but a wall of records all around all four corners and stuff.
Oh, I love it.
Hit us, Moose. Tell us what you got.
All right, party people. I'm Kevin the Moose Anderson. I'm the host of the world famous Lessons in Jazz series, show that runs on WHOV as well as Sirius XM channel 142. And how I got into the mix, probably in 1998 or 99, was at Hampton University. I was a history major. And I wrote a thesis. So I started to develop a thesis on the relationship between jazz and hip hop. And if you know anything about writing a thesis or any kind of documentation, you need to have source material that you're citing from.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, there was no source material on the relationship between jazz and hip hop. And I developed a radio show that dealt with this and openly discussed it, which is called the world famous Lessons in Jazz series. Unbeknownst to myself, and I had two co-hosts at the time. Now it's just down to one. Unbeknownst to us, we were setting ourselves up to become like the cultural archivists of the airwaves. Right. And, initially starting using sampling, we would talk about, certain record labels' contributions to sampling, or certain artists or certain groups. And then we reached to regional sounds. And what started to happen was quite a phenomenon. We started to become adopted by a lot of these original old school artists.
Right.
And the information that they passed on to us, matter of fact, Mr. McGee, this past week, I was with Gene Kahn, Lonnie Liston Smith, and Norman Connors. And it dawned on me that the stuff that they had told us back in 05 and 06 when they first adopted us wasn't for then, it was for the future.
Right.
And, it's kind of hard to say this sometimes, but, the value of what I know about these artists will only increase once their eyes close, man. That's what I'm kind of convinced on now. And so it's been a life-changing series of events. Because I never thought of myself. I didn't come to college to do radio. I came here on a football scholarship, and nothing about me now is football. You know what I mean?
So look, how long were you PD or at HOV? Or how long did you do that?
I was the operations and program director at WHOV for 20 years.
Wow.
And didn't know what the jewel I had when I got here, man. Already had working relationships with all of the top jazz labels. We had a diverse format: gospel, traditional jazz, contemporary. We even played bump-to-bump music on the weekend. Latin music as well as reggae. So, you know, it was a cultural mix that I was thrusted into that, you know what I mean? I'm here now. Got the respect of Mr. McGee and his pride in the big hand and lane. So yeah.
Right. You're the man. Craig Belcher.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
You
My
know, I
turn.
owe you a debt of gratitude because a couple of times you have brought to the attention of a wider public some of the things that I've done. And I still have a Polk Award on my wall because Craig nominated me for the Polk Award and for excellence in education.
It was a Pollock Award.
Pollock, there you go. So you see how much I read the award, how much I read. Polk, Pollock, whatever. Yeah, thank you for correcting me. See, that's why I respect you, brother, so much. And you know what? That's what I love. You corrected me because you don't want me to go out here being wrong. And that's what we do. We, all of you guys, man, you all said, no, it wasn't Lonnie Liston Smith. It was somebody, because we want to get it right.
Right.
And so I appreciate that. And I wish more brothers would stop getting stuff stuck up their butt and realize that the more we correct each other and keep everybody on the 100, that our history will be more accurate in the future. Like what Moose was saying, you know, and Moose, Jaquan had just done an awesome interview on Lonnie Liston Smith, where
Superb.
I found out that Lonnie Liston Smith had played tuba in the band all the way through college, and nobody in Richmond, I'm a band director, and I have a history of 50 years of band directors here in Richmond, and I ain't never heard nobody say Lonnie Liston Smith played tuba in the band here in Richmond until Lonnie said it.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
Craig Belcher,
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about yourself, my brother.
All right. I'm the arts and entertainment editor for Richmond Magazine. I've been doing that for about 4 years. Years prior to that, I've worked as a freelance writer in different publications around Richmond. Also currently work doing some A&R stuff for a UK label called Super Disco Edits. And through that position, I've put out some music from Stu Gardner and some other R&B musicians who have recordings that were sitting in a vault somewhere where have gone unheard for a long time. So I started in the music industry back in probably 90, 91 with a music video show I had aired for about 10 or 11 years.
What was that show called?
It was called Wavelength. Oh, you remember that?
Craig, where are you from?
I'm from Richmond. I'm from Henrico.
All right, Richmond. All right, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Because even though Kevin has done all that stuff that he did down in Hampton, he's from Richmond.
Now, Mr.
I saw
McGee,
that.
on that note,
Uh-huh.
on that note, right?
Right.
I want to say, coming to Hampton has taught me more about Richmond
Right.
than I could have ever imagined, man. Oh my God. Oh
got
my God.
I got
But
you.
yeah, go ahead, Craig. My bad, man.
Yeah. So Bill, you were asking me, we said we we're going to talk about what drives us, you know, to write about music and talk about music so much. I can't speak for anyone else, but I feel driven. You know, this is like something I feel like it has to be done, and it's going to be done. And if it's going to be done correctly, you know, the right people need to make sure they take charge. Hello,
Well, see-
everybody still there? Okay, yeah.
You see, that's what I was saying to you that I could tell about all four of you guys. It's a calling. It's for lack of a better word, all of you all answer the call of the ministry to hip hop and to music.
Mhm.
It's a minute. A lot of people don't understand that all your ministry doesn't have to be preaching and everybody's saved, you know, your soul. Some people
Amen.
are called to teach.
Mhm.
Some people are called to teach. And the four of you are teachers through the way of your journalism and your history. And you all are making sure that the record is done right. And before I turn it over to Chris Williams, today I was thinking about you guys, and I was saying, John, the one reason I wanted to do that is either one of these or all four of these guys are one day going to be as big as Nelson George. And I believe that.
Wow.
You know, and I've been following Nelson George for over 40 years. You know, the death of R&B and all that, you know, just the stuff that he's done. And I see you all's future like that, to the point that when somebody calls your name, it will be in the respect of knowledge. You know what I'm saying? It'll be respect of knowledge. So I want to turn to the most recent person I've met is this brother right here, Chris Williams. And I met him because of a reference to D'Angelo, and somebody called me up or pointed me to Chris Williams and say, hey, look, you need to check this brother out. He's talking about D'Angelo over there. And so, so Chris, tell us about yourself, my brother.
Well, you know, first, let me thank you, Mr. McGee, for having me on the show this evening. It's a real honor, and I've really enjoyed our conversations the past couple of months. I'm originally from Fredericksburg, which is about 45, 50 minutes north of Richmond, but I went to VCU undergrad. So I have ties to Richmond.
All right.
I've written for a lot of publications the past 10 years. I'm kind of maybe newer to this than everyone else. I didn't start until about 2010, writing for different publications. I got my first start with small publications, my local hometown newspaper, the Freelance Star. And then eventually, you know, I started writing for Ebony magazine and other places, the Atlantic, the Guardian. I've had my stuff picked up by New York Times, Rolling Stone, and a few other places. I write specifically about historical albums, and I interview many of the people involved with those albums. I feel like it's very important for Black people to tell the history of Black music.
Amen.
I just don't feel like there's any other way around that. And I've been fortunate for the past decade to interview many of our legends and icons. A few of them have passed since then, but being able to control the narrative and our stories and how they're told is something I'm very passionate about. Like Kevin and Jaquan, I have a ton of vinyl. I need help. But
they'll help you get rid of it.
But I love it, man. You know, Black music is who I am. I love Black people. I love what we've created. We're the originators of all of this music and all this culture. I was having a conversation with another writer last night saying how important it is for us to be telling our stories now. And it's unfortunate that we don't have as many platforms as many of our counterparts do to share these stories. But just like our ancestors before us, we've been very resourceful in being able to tell our stories from the standpoint of our own. And I think as we continue to move forward, it's going to be important for us to join forces and tell these stories. And Mr. McGee, I mean, the stories you've told me about yourself kind of floored me in our conversation. So I
don't believe none of that stuff I told you. Hey, look, Chris, not to interrupt, but I got something I want to do with each one of you all. And I want you all to speak for just a few minutes, and we'll start back with Jaquan, on the interview that did the most for you as far as who you talk to, that, you know what I'm saying, that light bulb or your heart something happened. I know, Craig, you're real close with Stu. And I know you told me this thing about Stu and the time thing that I kept, about Stu God and keeping a lot of the clocks around the house, But I want everybody to tell me just for a few minutes about the most influential interview you've conducted and why it was so important, Jay.
It's hard to do one, man. I'll very briefly name a couple. The Lonnie Liston Smith interview, because I was a fan of his music. I grew up to it. I'm a sampling producer as well, so I understand his music from the standpoint of why Jay-Z would want to use it, and Stetson Sonic and everybody else. But I also grew up to it before there was anything such as hip hop, or before there was anybody sampling and rapping.
Right.
So I mean, just some of the stuff he mentioned to me were things that my parents had mentioned about, like 2 Street and the Jarmels and all of that. I knew the history loosely from my parents talking about it, being a Richmonder, but he put so much context to it. So it's always an honor to speak and link up with him. And I say the others would be not just one interview. I say, I'm a great lover of Sugar Hill Records and Enjoy Records, Bobby Robinson and Sylvia Robinson's labels. So I love to talk to the artists that recorded for those labels, especially groups like Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. And because I've been doing some really extensive work on those labels, I had a chance to talk to all of the guys who played on the records. I mean, from the bass player, yourself, Mr. McGee, the bass players, everybody. I've talked to
Doug Wimbish. We'll call it
Doug Wimbish,
right.
Keith LeBlanc, Craig Derry. Those guys go back to wood, brass, and steel before there was any rap. I even talked to the lady who did the artwork on all of those records. There's an East Indian lady named Himu. So that was one of my favorite labels growing up, or rap labels at least, from the time of 8 or 9 years old. So to actually fill in the blanks of questions I had since I was a kid, those were really, really special. So I say the Lonnie Liston Smith interview, the Sugar Hill related stuff. And I talked to Gregory Johnson from Cameo. I'm a big funk fan. And to be able to talk to him about, stuff way before Word Up. I mean, like, I just want to be, and rigor mortis and all that. I mean, he was Larry's Blackman's right-hand man. They started Cameo together. Right. So to be able to get that history from the beginning. Oh, and Steve Arrington from Slave. Though I say those four, because like I said, I'm not just a hip hop guy. I love hip hop because I love the things that hip hop used that came before it. So, to be able to talk about the Dayton funk with Steve Arrington and all that stuff, I'd say those 3 or 4 were the best for me.
Look, August Moon, when he had the club on Hall Street, had Slave here in Richmond. And I respected that tune, Slide, so much, man. I had to slide in there and check them out.
He slide on in there, did it?
Define slide in for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Define slide in.
So Moose.
Yes, sir.
Tell me, and I know, your legends of jazz and all of that, man, and the Hampton Jazz Festivals, it has to be hard for you to name one person too. And Jay didn't do name one like I asked him to. So
it's hard to do, man. It's hard to do.
Yeah,
I know. Moose, give me the number one person that you've interviewed that when you left, you said, Dowl. And you probably said a different word, but that's why I choose to say Dowl. Go ahead.
Hands down, it would be Al Bell, the former head of Stax Records.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so I talked to Mr. Bell prior to us interviewing for maybe 3 days straight, back and forth. And then we did an interview that was maybe 2 hours, 3 hours. And a few things that he said that blew my mind. Now listen to me closely, Mr. McGee. He said that hip hop had done more for Black music than everything in the past combined. And he explained that based on this. Salt and Pepper had a song called What a Man.
Right.
The original for that was these ladies on Stax. So when they were trying to clear the sample, Al Bell was contracted to track these ladies down. When he found them, they were working regular jobs, but because of the success and the popularity of What a Man by Salt and Pepper, they were able to hit the road again.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Nice.
He also talks
Nice.
about being at bus stations, train stations, airports, and hip hop producers and that really dig in the crates approaching him. He not knowing who the hell they are,
Right.
and they're telling him about albums that he produced.
Right. Right.
He had no idea that was even out.
Right.
Hmm.
He was finding some revenue sources.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
going like, oh, really? Jay-Z sampled that?
Oh,
Oh,
what?
let me
Yeah.
call my lawyer.
Yeah.
Right.
Couple other things that he shared with me. And see, Mr. McGee, I got here in 76. So
Okay.
some of this stuff is a little bit before me. But he talked about what issued the change in Black radio from being called Black radio to urban contemporary.
Okay.
Who coined that phrase?
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
circle that they
Yeah.
were in.
Yeah, I know.
Oh.
And how those people who coined that phrase, well, first of all, they switched from Black to urban contemporary to try to get after more advertising dollars.
Sure. Sure.
And then he drew that connection between those individuals and the same individuals that sold off the stations in the 90s and early 2000s to the conglomerates.
Whoa. Arbitron and
Whoa.
Nielsen, baby. Arbitron and Nielsen.
Yeah. And so, you know, the relationship that interview produced with me and Mr. Bell changed how I looked at Black music.
Right.
Because Mr. Bell was the one that told me you learn Black music not in the classroom, but en route.
Right. Yes.
And see, I know you were saying one, but the second interview would have to be from the archives of African American music and culture at Indiana University. Matter of fact, shout out to Dr. Portia K. Malsby.
My girl.
Okay.
She sought me out. And when they did a special on us for their quarterly magazine,
Right.
they told us stuff about our show that we didn't even know.
Right.
Connections to the past.
Right.
It made us have to go back and study Black radio. Just
Right.
by having the name Kevin the Moose Anderson. That's a connection to the past.
Right.
The fact how, you know, when we first started, we were really hip hop. So it was a whole bunch of yo, you know what I'm saying? MD Illegal Rap
Right,
Radio.
right.
It's my man Moose. But how that was splashed with us being able to articulate, but then
Sure.
also knowing what it is that we were talking about.
Mhm.
Sure.
And so, you know, Mr. Bell, back to Mr. Bell, he also made me look at disco music with a different lens.
Yes.
And, you know, one of his theories is that disco killed the Black artists.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him about disco. I was like, you know, was it that popular? Because I would get all of these jazz records with a lot of well-known jazz musicians playing disco tunes.
Right.
And he said it infected music so much that most of your Black artists couldn't recover from that.
Yeah. Well, what he may have not tied into that was the technology that also came around during the time of disco. Our record, Love Injection, when we did the demo to that record, we did it as a jazzy boom 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 boom, right? And then Fred Wesley, when we got in the studio, Fred shut all that mess down. The drummer went in there and recorded kick drum, with a click, boom, 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 nothing but kick with a click. All right. And then everything else was just done in a classic disco format. All the bouncy bass lines would just go on the quarter notes, boom, 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 boom. We were going like, what the are you doing to our record? All right. our record Love Injection is listed in the top 200 disco hits of all time because it had made it to #2 in New York, right behind Instant Replay. And I told you guys the story before. We were riding down Broadway and heard Love Injection playing out in the street when everybody was eating lunch, but it wasn't synced with the record radio in the car. So we going like, what the blue blaze is going on? We switched over to KYS and they were playing Love Injection at the same time. So we're riding down the street, BLS is playing our record, KYS is playing our record, and we're going to play at Madison Square Garden. And I'm going like, really? But guess what? That was the fall of '69. And you know that's when they said disco died. They said disco died in 79.
79. Yeah, 79.
Fall of '79. All right. When Love Injection started going up the charts, we made it to, I think, 199 on the top 200 all-time disco hits at Billboard. And that was the year disco died. And I could go through all the stories about Evelyn Champagne King and Shame and all that stuff we did with her. But I'm gonna turn it over to Craig now. But Kevin, you said a couple of things that are very important about Al Bell that maybe we'll have to talk about on another session.
Go ahead and say it, because I got my notepad out.
I would have wanted to ask him about Otis Redding, because I talked to Otis Redding's children, and growing up in Atlanta, and I knew Rogers Redding, Otis's brother, and growing up in Atlanta, which is Capricorn, was right down the, down in Macon. I heard straight off the big grapevine that the plane was sabotaged. Straight off the grapevine, and then that was street talk. But the word at the time was that they had offered Al Bell the same deal that they had offered Motown. And Al and them were going like, nah, I think we're good.
Well,
and go ahead.
What you're saying about the deal is correct. And see, that brings to another point.
Right.
He talked about the creation of Black music entities within the major labels.
So he
up.
acknowledged they did offer him that deal that they offered Motown.
Something similar to that. Something similar to that.
Well,
yeah, definitely something
quote
similar
unquote,
to that.
the people offered him the deal in the music industry. Those people that none of us know any names for, but we know that they exist in the music business. And that's how Berry Gordy is still alive today, and a gazillionaire. And it's kind of crazy because he took the deal. They moved from Detroit to LA and all that. And Motown is a whole nother whatever. I'm gonna let Craig Belcher and Moose, I'm sorry to cut you off. I know we could do this. Craig.
No problem.
Yeah.
Other than me, who have you interviewed? Who have you interviewed?
It was just you, because you talked so long, I didn't have time to talk to anybody else.
I know, man. And I know you had to get a whole nother tape out. You had one of the little tape joints, a little mini tape joints. And he had to get a whole nother, say, Mr. McGee, hold up, I gotta need another tape. The joint was 90 minutes long, and then he needed another. No, Craig, seriously, who have you interviewed that really changed some things about the way you did what you did?
Well, my first interview was back in 1991. I interviewed Public Enemy.
Whoa.
And this was when they were like close to the top of their powers. And I don't really remember a whole lot about what we talked about. It was just the fact that I was able to secure that with just a microphone and a camera, presenting myself in a professional manner.
Right.
And I realized, okay, I can get to pretty much anybody I want to if I play this correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a short answer for it, so
But no,
I'm gonna get time for the expert.
But so where was Chuck D's head at the time? Do you remember anything that he said that was significant as far as how did they know that they were having the effect on the music industry that they had?
I think so. I remember one question I did ask them. I asked them about what is going to happen when your time starts to wane. What happens when Public Enemy isn't as hot as it is right now. And he was saying, well, some of those groups are already on tour. Those groups that are more angry than we are, and are more, have more of a street edge than we do, like the Ghetto Boys. He said eventually those kind of groups would, eclipse him because they were so much more angrier, and more street.
Isn't that an amazing thing to say that a group is more angry than Public Enemy? Wow.
Well, look, Mr. McGee, if you look at it now, you can see what he's talking about.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But I'm thinking about it at the time, man.
Oh yeah.
You would have thought that Public, because see, I always used to tell people and my students at the time, NWA is one thing, right? And Public Enemy is something totally different. I said, now, if you want to know whose camp I'm in, I'm on the Public Enemy side. See, the NWA side had a whole nother thing with it that rubbed me a little wrong. But Public Enemy was, them from my generation.
Right.
Like Power Baby. We were, I was ready to get out there and go with them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I ain't had no big clock, but I was. Chris, tell me who you interviewed that really made a difference.
I was just sitting here listening to the other brothers speak, and there's two. I'll be real quick. Jaleel Hutchins from Houdini. Having him describe that process of making Escape from 1984, and how much of a factor Connie Plank was in making that record. And he was telling me the details about their time in Germany and making that record, and how they were in the countryside of Berlin, way outside the city limits, and they visited Connie Plank's parents. And he said he looked up in the house that was a couple doors down from Connie Plank's house, and someone had a picture of Adolf Hitler on their on their wall. He was like, yeah, it's time for us to go. But he said Connie Plank's parents were lovely people. And I would say the other one, because I'm a Stevie Wonder, fanatic, is the interviews I've done with Malcolm Cecil and Robert Margouleff during those years, which is his classic period. I've been very fortunate to interview them about those records, starting with Music of My Mind, all the way to Fulfilling This, and just learning about the intricacies of the genius of Stevie Wonder, and also how much Malcolm and Bob facilitated and assisted Stevie during that time period. The interview with Jaleel really made me see, there's more than just the record making process. There's the backstory to the backstory. And that's why I really started to kind of hone my skill set as an interviewer when interviewing these legends. So I would say those two. It's hard. It's like the other brothers were saying, it's hard to really, pinpoint, because I'm sure between all of us, we've interviewed probably thousands of people. It was difficult, but those are two that I would say.
Cool. Now, Kevin, the piano player, my man, that was it, Weldon Irvin?
Yes, sir.
Did you all ever get a chance? I mean, I know you have that connection, but how much of a connection with Weldon did Legends of Jazz have?
So ironically, I never met Weldon.
Okay.
One thing I do feel bad about, and this haunts me to this day. The year that I started Lessons in Jazz, an older gentleman dropped off a bag of tapes at the radio station.
Okay.
And from all accounts, from what I remember, it was Weldon.
Wow.
And I missed it.
Oh, wow.
And so, fellas, to bring everybody up to speed, we were talking about the late, great Weldon Irvine. Where I live at right now is on the property where he grew up at.
Oh,
Okay.
Wow.
okay.
Okay.
And you know, it's an unreal connection that I have with him. We have the same birthday.
Wow.
Mr. McGee, we like the same kind and dated the same kind of women.
Oh, wow.
It's things that the woman that he lived with for 30 plus years and his sister has told me about him, that they found out about me, that they made the connection.
Right. Right.
And the example I use is we did a promotion with the movie 8 Mile, and I had maybe 15 8 Mile hats, skull caps.
Right.
And so I wore one every day, a different one every day. I like that logic.
Right.
The woman that he lived with came to tears when she found out I did that, because she said Weldon had 7 of the same hats and he would wear one each day.
Ooh,
Wow.
that's deep. That's deep.
And so it's another lady running around Richmond and Maryland named Myra. Well, her name is Ayaba Bay now, but she used to go by the name of Myra Young. What makes her significant in this situation is the first song that I can remember as a youngster,
Right.
where I knew the original sample was BDP, My Philosophy. The original is Stanley Turrentine and Milt Jackson, a song called Sister Sanctified. And Weldon wrote that while he was in school here at Hampton for Myra when she was in his band. Miss Ayaba Bay.
And she's here in Richmond, so you know I got to hunt her down.
She go back between Richmond and Maryland. But what makes her significant is she substituted at my high school my 10th, 11th, and 12th grade year.
Wow.
Lived in a house 4 blocks from my house in Highland Park.
Synergy, baby. Synergy. Well, look,
Yeah.
so let me lock in some synergy here. I met Portia Malsbeck maybe 35 years ago at Jack the Rapper. And I was supposed to go and do my master's in Indiana with her. Because at the time she was doing all that stuff in Indiana. And you know, she has textbooks that we use now, even at Virginia State. So Dr. Portia Malsby, a lot of people don't know, is the beast. And then you mentioned you mentioned Gene Kahn. One of y'all mentioned Gene Kahn and Stevie's bass player, Scott Edwards, Chris, all of them, I was telling you, went to my high school in Atlanta. So the high school I went to in Atlanta had one of my best buds and mentors is a guy named William G. He played piano for Marvin Gaye. The bass player, Scott Edwards, played bass for Stevie Wonder. Gene Kahn graduated from that school. Lena Horne went there in the 8th or 9th grade when she had moved from Fort Valley to Atlanta before she moved to New York. And then Dr. Lewis Sullivan was the trumpet section leader at the high school before he went on to found the Morehouse School of Medicine and became the first Black Surgeon General, or whatever he was in that thing. So there's a lot of synergy going on. I'm gonna give everybody a minute to wrap up because this is not supposed to be an extremely long program. And maybe we'll just have to come back and do a whole nother program or bring you guys in maybe 1 or 2 so that you have more time to talk about what it is you're doing. What I need you to do now is tell us what you're doing currently and what are you moving for right now? And then after that, I'm gonna let John wrap us up. Jay.
Currently, I'm really into documentary filmmaking. You know, I really, because of COVID and everything else, it seems like everybody's trying to do documentaries at this point. You know, it's something that hopefully won't become too oversaturated, but I'm really interested in taking, you know, for 20 some years, I was doing written stuff, like I mentioned, and it was very difficult to edit. I'm very much about getting people on camera and putting some pieces together with that. So that's mainly what I'm doing. Writing and documentary film work is what I'm doing right now.
Tell me about that documentary you did or doing on Sylvia.
Okay, so it started as something just about Sylvia as like one of the first black women with, with their own. She had probably 8 or 9 different labels at least, all before Sugar Hill. She had All Platinum, Turbo, and Stang, and quite a few. It started with it was about her originally, and it morphed into being more about Sugar Hill, and some of that was because I ran into some issues with her sons, where they they don't play around. They will have you tied up in court forever. But it's funny how it keeps coming around, because when Joey was alive, he was interested in the stuff that I had on his mother. Then when he passed away, Leland, like I said, they would kind of be like, "Hey, you're doing something with my mom. You didn't get permission, whatever." And then he would see what I had, and he called me like a couple months ago. Man, I never knew that my mother had recorded the OJs, like the OJs versus the Moments. He didn't know about. He was young. He didn't know everything his mother had done. Yeah, and I have a plethora of stuff on her. And when he saw, like, I had a Jet magazine with her on, and I did like a 10-minute video on his mother, and he saw it, and he totally changed his tune. And he said he wants to do something with me about his mother. So I'm really, really deep into the Sugar Hill story. Sometimes a little deeper than I wish I was. And I only say that because sometimes the mystery of stuff is really cool. And I when I look back at the 8 or 9-year-old me, I wasn't necessarily planning to get all the answers to every question I ever had, because it takes some of the magic away. But I wouldn't trade it, though. I mean, everything I ever wanted to know, I know that, and so much more as far as that.
In other words, you didn't know that Jennifer Lopez had a few scars in a couple of places and some pimples. So you was like, as long as I didn't get that close-up view, I was good. But now I see J-Lo got a few little things going on. Nah, I'll leave that alone.
No, man, but they say you should never meet your heroes. And in some ways that's true. Yeah, some people have been disappointing. One great thing about before the internet was you saw the person's music, and you respected it for what it was. Now that we have, like, I always say, if Rick James was alive now, he wouldn't be as magical to us, because every time he did something, TMZ would have picked, allegedly he kidnapped the chick and burned her with a crack pipe. But that was today, TMZ would have had the crack pipe, and everything is, we see everything in real time now.
Hey, Moose. What are you up to right now, my brother? Kevin the Moose Anderson, tell me what you up to. And when you come back home, man, we got to hook up. Come by the studio, please. Tell me what you up to. I will.
Man, I'm working in the garden every day nowadays, man. This pandemic has really gotten me outside. I got a nice crop of collards and kale and Swiss chard. I'm about to put some broccoli in the ground. But on the musical side, COVID has made my co-host and I realize that we need to position our material so that it will be in the future. Yes. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of our core musicians, and when I say the core, it's 5 major musicians who adopted us: Roy Ayers, Ronnie Laws, Lonnie Liston Smith, Gene Carn, and Wayne Henderson. Mr. Henderson has already passed away. So it's 4. And we've recognized how our mind has changed, whether it's calling Mr. Smith and asking him if he's eating his fruits and vegetables and drinking his water and taking his walk, or just talking to Miss Carn about fertilizer and tulips and black-eyed daisies, you know what I mean, and things of that nature. Prepping
all those children and grandchildren she got, because she loves her babies.
She does. And it's leading us to start researching some type of consortium with the descendants of all of these Black music greats, to bring them together to talk about what kind of deals are favorable, what kind of deals they want to stay away from, how technology is influencing their royalties and so forth. Because like what Jay Quan was saying, when you get to meet these people's children, it changes the conversation. Right. Because most of the time you're gonna know more about their parents than they do. Right. And then they look at you different. Right. Right. And then you instantly become family, because you know about things that they may not have known about, or they knew that, you know, the family really didn't talk about, you know what I mean? And you're able to speak to them on a real one-on-one level, man. And I know what Jaquan is talking about. That look that he had in his eyes when he was talking about that guy calling him. I know what that's about. I know how that feels, man. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Craig, what
Yes.
you working on? I know you working on something. I know that because you always. Craig called me up saying, "Man, I know you got some tape somewhere. I know you got some old hits somewhere. Go in there and find them tapes, man. Come on, man. I know you got some of that 1970s funk that's hidden. What you working on now?"
Trying to get those tapes from you.
I'm trying to get them, Bill. I'm trying to get them too. So seriously, come on, man. What are you working on, man? Come on, tell us something.
Well, I'm in, like Jaquan said, everybody's trying to do documentaries. So I've been called back into the video business. So I'm doing pre-production research for a company out in Los Angeles about a Howard University team. I don't know if I can say that much. I probably gave it away already.
Okay.
And I'm in production on something I started about 5 years ago and trying to get it finished now.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. Chris, what you working on? And let me just say this to everybody. Aside from, and Jay, I promised you that we would try to stay off the politics and stuff. I mean, not Jay, Craig. But Chris works for the James Farmer Institute, if I'm not mistaken. Is that what it is, Chris?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, share with us a little bit about what that is that you're doing.
Sure, be happy to. I work for the University of Mary Washington. I'm the assistant director of the James Farmer Multicultural Center. And I've been working with the city of Fredericksburg on commemorating the 60th anniversary of the Freedom Rides. And we have a downtown, we were able to get a state historical marker placed in downtown Fredericksburg, which will be unveiled next month. In honor of Dr. Farmer. I grew up about 5 minutes from Dr. Farmer, and many people don't know he's considered one of the big four of the civil rights movement. Whenever I say James Farmer, most people are like, "Who?" And then I have to go into the whole elevator speech about who he was. But it's really, that was a really important thing for me to be able to lead with the city and get that in his honor, because he's one of my earliest mentors growing up here.
Awesome. And musically, what are you working on?
Musically, working on some stuff for Wax Poetics. I have a piece in the upcoming 20th anniversary issue. Really excited about that. That's actually being revealed. The cover of it is being revealed tomorrow. And then I have some other stuff that I'll be working on with them for the remainder of the year. And also OK Player. Like everyone else, I really want to get my hands into documentary filmmaking, because I have some ideas on some things that I haven't seen quite out there yet. That's pretty much it outside of
Awesome.
my other stuff.
Awesome. So let me ask you a final question. And did any of you guys know each other personally before tonight? Or so, Craig, Jay, who did you know of the other guys, the three?
Personally, well, I know Craig. I mean, it's funny because I seen Craig on his television show. Then I bought records from him at different record, events.
Right.
I didn't really know it until we were a little bit into the conversation that I've been talking to Moose online, and we haven't followed each other on social media for a minute. And until he said the word Moose, I'm like, oh, that's the brother. Okay. And like I said, me and you go back, you don't remember it, but I remember in the 90s, man, I was trying to, get my foot in the game, in the rap thing. And I don't even think you did the Super Friend stuff yet. And I knew who you were. And we had jury duty together. And I was talking to you, and I was like, "You're in the music industry, right?" And you were like, "Yeah, blah blah blah." But we couldn't really talk because we were in jury duty. That That was
I
in
don't-
the early part of the 90s. So
I'm glad you told me that.
that was a minute ago. I got a good memory. That helps with my historian stuff. Is I got a good memory. But I didn't personally know anybody. You know, I other than Craig. You know, Craig's been in my house to interview me for the magazine, and we got a relationship in writing.
Kevin, did you know any of these other brothers before today?
I had met Jaquan online and
Right.
didn't realize he was from Richmond. He got me by a couple of years, so I guess that's where I missed him.
Right.
Craig, I used to buy records from Craig at Phono Booth and look at his show. That's why I wanted to hear him say, you know what I mean, the name of his show. 'Cause it was instrumental to me. You know what I mean? It exposed me to hip hop that I wasn't going to necessarily hear on the radio.
Right. Right.
And Chris, I got a homegirl I went to Hampton with that's I believe is friends with Chris, that she would talk about him, you know what I mean, ever so often, things that he was doing.
Craig, did you know any of these other brothers?
Let's see, Jaquan, I have sent him checks for writing. And Chris, I tried to get him to write for us. I'm still trying to get Chris to write for us. I guess he doesn't like money, or he's just so well off.
Hey,
From Mary Washington.
shoot it to me. I'll take it.
Hey, okay. And Moose, I just met tonight. And thanks for those kind words, but I never worked at the phono booth.
You
I
did?
think you got me mixed up with Andre.
So, were you selling records? Because other people said they were buying records. You
I
never
bought
saw
records from him at a record show before. I know
at a record show.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris,
record
did you
show,
know any
shit.
of these brothers before tonight?
I knew Craig through email. I know maybe 4 or 5 years ago, he reached out to me wanting to write for the mag. And at the time, I forgot what was going on, but I had some stuff going on personally. And that's why I didn't take advantage of the opportunity. But Craig, I'm more than open to working with you now. So
I'll
if
be
the door's still open, let me
Great.
know.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
See, this is a historic show that we did tonight, because we're bringing some folks together, man, that can change the history of how things are done, because networking is such a powerful thing. You know what I'm saying? And go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead.
I want to keep in contact with all of the fellas for this right here. And it's gonna sound, you know, maybe be a little crazy, but they know my path. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the stuff that I say to them is not gonna be wild.
Right.
They're not gonna look at me crazy. You know what I mean? They can kind of help me sort through some things. Because when you going through it, you don't really know what's happening.
Right.
And then you tell these tales to your family and your friends, and their eyes get big, and you just being you.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of times it's not being bragging or anything like
Right.
that. You're just speaking on what you have experienced.
Right.
And I can
relate to that, like the time when we were on tour with Evelyn King, and we did the show at Constitution Hall, and we were doing an Earth, Wind, and Fire tune, right? And we turned around and looked, and Nile Rodgers, Bernard Edwards, and Luther was standing on stage, right? And we looked back and like, well, what? You know, and they were just like, Lord have mercy. And Luther and I sat out and talked for about an hour and a half that evening, man. And we're just talking about life, people, you know, and when I sat down and I try to tell people that, you know, I've sat down, and Luther and I just sat down, and this is before any of his solo albums. You know what I'm saying? So when you like what you were saying, Kevin, a lot of people don't understand and just don't understand, but we do. We understand that all of us are just people.
Yeah.
And all of us have families. And you all were talking about Gene Kahn, and I've been to Stu Gardner's house with Craig. I had never met Stu before Craig, even though, well, I take that back. I'm lying. I had played with Lou Rawls, and Stu contracted the gig. And he didn't direct the band, Bonham did. The famous music director, Bonham.
HB Bonham?
HB Bonham did it.
Yeah.
HB Bonham was the music director for Lou that night. And because it was in Richmond, Stu got the horns to play. So that's where I had met Stu, but we had never really sat down and had a conversation like we did when you invited me to his house, Craig. But man, I'm just telling you right now, John, I'm just so happy that we had a chance to pull this one off, because you guys, yeah, I'll give it to you, Chris, because you guys, you know what I'm saying, man? You all are the next level to me. You're the next level. And let me say this to you all. A lot of musicians don't really understand and relate to where you all are, because you all are approaching it from another side. My being a teacher is what makes me a teacher and a performer, makes me understand the side that you all did. When I wrote the article, when Straight Out of Compton came out, and I wrote the article about NWA, and it got published, you know, in a couple of magazine papers here, I felt a little bit kinship to what you all, because I actually approached looking at the movie with my background as a musician and a teacher. And then I told people, I said, and that's I don't even know if you ever seen that article I wrote, John, but I approached going to see the movie with a negative, because I was really trying to cut them up. I was gonna cut NWA up, because NWA was never one of my favorite groups because of the misogyny and the cussing and all that stuff. You know, I ain't no cussing person. So I was gonna cut them up. And after I saw the movie, man, you know, I had to come real. I said, them boys bought that joint. I mean, they bought that. They bought that movie to where if it moved a brother like me, who was really wanting to be critical. And that's what you all do. When you're talking about research and working on your masters and thesis and all that stuff, Kevin, and what happens is you all approach everything with a concept, but ultimately you open-mindedly write what the real deal is. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, that you all come to it from what you bring through your life experiences. But what the final product is what's real. And that's why I respect you guys for that much. Chris, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just quickly wanted to say, I know Jaquan emailed me and he was like, Mr. McGee has told me you're somebody I should get to know.
Yeah.
And Kevin, I'm curious to know who that person was at Hampton who told you about me.
It's a young lady named Allison. She lives up in Northern Virginia.
Yep. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, you know what I mean? She real incense and oil into, you know what I mean, a lot of music and things of that nature. You know, she's a good reference. Case in point, I told her I was a big Art Blakely fan. And so she sent me a link to the Howard Archive, 12 hours of interviews on Art Blakely.
Wow.
Yeah, I want to do this again because, you know what I mean? It's like I know you guys, but we never really met.
Right.
Yeah. It's funny, man. It's a small world. I wanted to bring up Weldon earlier, and I didn't know how I was going to bring it up, and it ended up naturally coming up. But I knew about him, but there's a brother named Victorious DaCosta who was doing a documentary on him. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, he came here. Go ahead and say what you're gonna say, and I'll talk about something that he did when he came here.
Right. So I was invited to Berkeley in Boston to do that brother had come to show some clips from his film, and I was like a moderator at this event. And it made me want to learn a little bit more about Weldon and his whole thing with Hollis and, you know, with Queens and Tom Brown and, the Jamaica Cats. You know, I started to really know more about him, and I wanted to bring that up here. And the fact that it was, that you were able to bring it up, Mr. McGee, it really, like I said, man, it's a small world.
So look, when Vic came here, he interviewed me and Mr. Bob Ransom. He brought Weldon's son here.
Yep. Yep.
And so when he bought Weldon Son here, I took him to the house next door. And, you know, he had never been to Hampton before. He had never seen the property in which his great grandparents owned.
Mm.
And so that was Mr. McGee. I had him in the backyard chopping wood, man.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, had him in the backyard, had him out there watering the plants too.
That's what I'm talking about.
So
Wow.
yeah. It's a I'm listening to these guys talk about what they're doing and you know, like how COVID has changed things and plans. And it seems like from the preservation standpoint, COVID has shook people's minds up in a way that has them thinking different about the culture and how it will be presented.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So look, before we log off, y'all see I got my 1619 t-shirt on. And I want to say this because of where Kevin is, that a lot of people don't know that the original ancestors arrived in Point Comfort down there in Hampton, Virginia, not Jamestown. And that was one of the things that I've been drawn to over the years. And Ronnie Song and I and a young lady here, a spoken word lady named Dr. Roberta Pope Matthews, we have a video that's coming out on Remember 1619 and the ancestors. And one of the brothers who's playing on that, percussionist, is a guy named Verandel Tucker, who's from down Tidewater Way. And Verandel is an ancestor of William Tucker, who was the first African born here in the United States, African American born in the colonies. And their Tucker family funeral, Tucker family cemetery, Moose, is down in Hampton. And
it's in Aberdeen.
In Aberdeen, okay. And it is that a part? Is that near Hampton or something? Or near?
It's not that far.
But I mean,
it's a neighborhood. It's like a section in Hampton.
It's a neighborhood in Hampton. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a beautiful place, man. Where we went down there and acknowledged our ancestors. So I wanted to get that in because of the date, because rumored it was either the 20th or up to the 25th. It was this time of year that our original ancestors, first African ancestors, came here to the British colony that became Virginia. So I had to get that in because my man Moose is down the way, and that's hallowed ground for us. You know what I'm saying? That's hallowed ground. We're all fortunate to be from here in Virginia. And I was born in Richmond, even though I grew up all over the United States and Atlanta, and I'm a HBCU baby, but I was born here in Richmond. And the next time we'll talk about, I'm gonna talk to y'all about my Gabriel Prosser project, when you are talking about you and nobody even recognized certain names of James Farmer. Well, you know they don't know who Gabriel Prosser is, but I'm gonna help them. I'm gonna help them find out because I'm gonna tell them, well, Google it. And then
it was Public Enemy. Public Enemy was the first time I paid attention to Vesey and Prosser, and because Chuck said that on the song "Prophets of Rage," and that made me want to go look it up. Definitely.
Right. And I'm gonna scare everybody.
I've got a friend. I've got a friend that's a descendant of Gabriel on her father's side, and they've done extensive research, and she's still doing it. So I'll have to put you in touch with her.
Put her in touch with me.
And I also know a Tucker descendant, and he told me about their project, so we're going to have to get with him as well.
Yeah, John, go ahead and wrap it up, man. I'm just so happy that I got a chance to bring all these brothers together, because it's in my. See, that just shows you how crazy stuff is. OG like myself has a relationship with all four of these brothers that we had not put it together synergistically. We hadn't brought all these relationships together before, but all four of you all, as I said at the beginning, Chris, and I'll say it again, I'm old and I've done a whole lot of things. And there's a whole lot of young people that don't necessarily impress a brother. But the four of you guys, now, I'm going to say this to you. I am impressed. I have been impressed by all four of you guys individually. You know, in our walk and our talk, and I talk to you all, I'll be honest with you. Y'all know me. I got some stories to tell. I don't usually learn a lot from young folk. You see what I'm saying? I learned something from all four of y'all. In any conversation we've had, I've learned something from all four of y'all. And so I give y'all that respect. That if y'all can teach an OG who's been around 70 years something about the music business, and I tell people when they were asking me about the Summer of Soul, I said, I lived the Summer of Soul. Nobody had to tell me about it. 1969, I graduated from high school. So and went to see Sly and the Family Stone in July, and they played Woodstock in August. I said, but so I got a little something, but I learned something from all four of y'all. John, these are the brothers. I'm glad we were able to do it. You wrap us up, John Dowl.
Thank you, Bill.
We're going to have to do this again with all four of you, definitely. Craig, I like what you said earlier about us telling our story. Years ago, when Yo MTV Raps was out, my sister, whom Bill knows, used to say to me all the time, John, why are these white guys hosting Yo MTV Raps? And I would say, it's the television thing, the media. It's like rap has to be accepted by X number of white folk before it's considered successful. And I'm putting up quotation marks, and I'm sure you all can relate to that. And also when you talked about certain songs having to have some commercial success before they reach the wider audience. And that's just the limitations of radio. And you all know how we often miss out because a song has to be successfully, or has to be played on radio.
When they said, when the brother mentioned Run DMC, the first thing, Walk This Way, went through my mind. And I was going like, walk this way.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I understand. I
know. And I was also impressed, Craig, when you said you tried to mix hip hop with jazz. I was over at WNSB at my time in Norfolk State, and I can tell you, I loved it. And I think that's why I probably have, if someone would ask me what's my favorite style of music, I would probably lean towards jazz simply because of that, but I love it all. And I can listen to go-go all day long. But I was, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. I wonder how many people with their noses up in the air got their panties in a bunch because how dare you mix hip hop, how that mess with jazz and we're just not supposed to do that. And I just wondered if you got that kind of feedback, but we can talk about that another time.
I did.
Guys, I can imagine you did. We're going to have you back again because this has been so much fun. And I'm telling you, when this show was going on, I thought about what Archie Manning told his sons. He said, never miss an opportunity to shut up. And that's what I did. And I loved it, guys. Thank you so very much. This has been Listen Up a Minute for Bill McGee, Derek Wright, our video guy, Larry Brown, who makes this all, and our four guests. Guys, thank you so very much. And please just promise me one thing. We will get together and come back to do this again. Definitely. Until next time, folks, this has been Listen Up a Minute. I'm John Dowl. God bless and good night.
Thank you, brothers.
Good night.